The Big Ten Freshman of the Year and a big part of a second straight Hoosiers tournament run, Jalen Hood Schifino left his mark at Indiana, and though he had limited one-and-done buzz coming into the year, he proved himself to be a legitimate first-round prospect. He's a bigger guard at 6'5", nearly 220 with a 6'10" wingspan, and has a knack for making plays in the pick and roll both for himself and for others, and also showed he could be stifling at the point of attack defensively. Now there are some real questions in the surrounding parts of his game, the rim pressure, the shooting consistency, and in the role that he best plays, but there's still a lot to be intrigued by, and he's only seen his appeal grow throughout the year and pre-draft process. Jalen excels in the pick and roll both as a passer and as a scorer, but specifically getting to his pull-up in the mid-range. He sets up screens well, whether it's on side, slide, or high pick and rolls, or on drag screens in transition. He has great pace and allows the defense to commit as he attacks, and he really made teams pay that were in drop coverage, which is what Purdue was in his 35-point explosion. And even those that switched with bigs giving space, he punished and let it fly quickly. As a right-handed shooter, he's actually more effective and comfortable going to his right on the pull-up, though he's capable going left. And the mid he spanned beyond just the pick and roll, as he was also a threat attacking closeouts and on a few in transition, making him one of the most efficient and high volume guys you'll see here in any given year. He showed off that great pace en route to some finishes at the bucket and got to his floater off 1 and 2 feet, which is an important option for him. Now he'll need to extend the range and continue adding versatility here, but he's got a great base as a pick and roll scorer.
Cut it to 10. The high screen action again. Jackson Davis can handle the ball out there, so can this guy. Jumper, Hood Schifino. Hood Schifino on the runner, yes.
That's his first field goal tonight to make it a 15-8 game. Hood Schifino left hand this time. They don't get the ball.
Kent State knew they had to have a better plan. And so far they have executed to perfection. Their freshman.
Hood Schifino dancing. Contested and
After midnight here on the East Coast.
Hood Schifino weaving to the rim. Clock at 5. Hood Schifino drives it. Score!
Play either guard spot.
So hard to speed him up. He plays with great.
and he can shoot the 3-ball as well. Hood Schifino, stop and start. Oh!
Preseason All-American Trace Jackson Davis, and living up to the hype.
5 points, 21 rebounds for Trace Jackson Davis. Meanwhile,
Maryland has been so together on these tracks, and they've been there on Jackson Davis.
Hood Schifino off the bounce. Pure.
Able to turn back Miller. Hood Schifino had Poplar on his back. He'll shoot and buries.
He was also very good as a passer in the pick and roll, showing great feel for his options and forming a great chemistry with a big-time play finisher and athlete in Trace Jackson Davis. He found him and other bigs on lobs and pocket passes, resulting in easy buckets, and did a good job of reading multiple coverages, getting the ball out quickly against traps and aggressive looks, while also remaining patient, showing off his pace and reading and reacting in drops and others. He showed he can make those weak side passes to the corner, reading the low or tag man and doing it with either hand. And overall, with the combination of what he could potentially do as a scorer and his grasp for making reads here, he has a pretty good base to build on as a pick and roll ball handler, despite not being the electric downhill or a three-point presence.
Hasn't been himself since he picked up that second foul. And to Jackson Davis, beautiful feed! Seconds to go in Bloomington. IU trying to avoid back-to-back losses. TJD.
Hood Schifino, the kick. Wide open. Corner three.
2 points on 7 of 11 shooting. So it's corner again, cross court.
All right, different than what we saw in the first. Hood Schifino helps speed up the process a lot faster.
Hood Schifino with the toss.
It's fairly close to you. It's on the court. Hand it off. Hood Schifino back in.
Look.
Putting on a clinic with his hand up. In the corner. Baseline.
Here's Hood Schifino. Jackson Davis.
Boy, they shot poorly on threes. Nice roll. They're too good. Empty sides.
And they're looking for their guy, D'Antoni.
He also made plays as a passer outside of the pick and roll. Now there wasn't a ton of freedom or space to create and improvise in the half court, so we didn't see much of that at all, but he did a pretty good job of moving the ball and is as good a post-entry passer as you're going to find in 2023. He pushed the pace in transition and had great touch and accuracy on lobs, and he also loves using the no-look, oftentimes manipulating the defense and giving him just the slightest needed angle to fit a pass in there. Now there are other things that will determine what role he has as a ball handler and overall playmaker in the NBA, but the passing field is bound to keep an offense flowing and create easy opportunities for his teammates in whatever role he takes on.
Indiana by 18 halfway through this. 95. Another bullet. Caleb Banks. Indiana with numbers on the run in the break. Oh, the no-look.
10 to shoot. Away on the floor. Spills it out to Hood Schifino. Up top, Jackson.
This guy, Perkins on him. Just go strong. Say goodnight.
Baseline off. Jackson Davis fouled there by Reed.
Double team with Pat Cummings. Galloway left open. Get it.
But Schifino penetrates the zone. Lays it up. Great opportunity. There's the lob.
Gotta be competitive. You're gonna come here and fight and scrap.
Over the top.
Here comes Hood Schifino.
Adams creating. Floater no. Rebound to the backside for Hood Schifino. Right ahead, it's Bates. All alone.
Got Agnew pass.
Long left it short. Thompson. First half turnovers now. Down the lane.
And then defensively, Fino was pretty impressive at the point of attack, and he has the physical tools to guard multiple positions with relative ease. He moves fairly well laterally and does a good job of absorbing contact and contesting to affect shots and in the pick and roll, while of course not without some freshman-like moments. His screen navigation was great for the most part. I loved how he got skinny, he closed gaps and was physical using his body to blow up screens. I'm not sure how much attention this specifically has gotten, but there were quite a few textbook moments here. Now off the ball, I think he has more work to do. I thought he had some really good moments at the nail and digging, but he also wasn't very active in passing lanes and had some lapses that would keep him from currently being described as good or impactful in this way, especially for someone with his physical tools. But I think you're okay with what he does have and continuing to mold him here. I wouldn't quite put him in that Anthony Black, Cason Wallace tier of potentially elite defense at the next level, but he's very good, and projecting forward, I'd be surprised if he wasn't a positive defender, and matching some of his offensive upside with the defensive versatility makes him someone that best case could slide in multiple spots in a lineup.
Has been starting of late. Williams is someone that can provide an impact on both ends.
He comes back. He's will have some more experience from him.
Of the night, he had 11 points against Minnesota on Wednesday.
Court over recent years is not valuing the basketball.
Fouls. Mike Woodson hasn't gone too deep into the bench. Logan Duncan still out there.
Swung off well by Galloway.
Getting into these improvement areas, I think the first thing that sticks out is some of his struggles as a driver, finisher, and also in his explosiveness around the rim and what that means for him being a primary ball handler and even staying effective in other roles. He shot just 52% total at the bucket on lower attempts, 46% in the half court, and he struggled more at turning the corner and creating good driving angles that didn't result in runners and shots fading away from the bucket. And in addition to that, he rarely got to the free throw line, and all of this makes some of his projection a little murkier. Now you couldn't mention any of that without the context of Trace Jackson Davis posting up and roaming the paint on most possessions, and also having guys like Malik Renew or Race Thompson in there at times, and that made for some of the worst spacing for any legit guard prospect in the class, and you can really see it in a lot of these clips, but it still doesn't alleviate the athletic concerns completely, especially when you look at him in comparison to some others on poorly spaced teams. I think there's a possibility he's able to learn and compensate, and maybe it looks dramatically enough different in the NBA to make it happen, but this is one of his key areas for improvement.
Time for Indiana. No Xavier Johnson. They're still without Race Thompson.
Cop was asking for it.
forced.
They've heard it enough. Jalen Hood Schifino.
Hood Schifino in the paint. Too strong.
Hate to see that from Minnesota. I mean, you never want to see guys get hurt, but they are so banged up.
Stolen. Galloway's got it. Hood Schifino behind the back. Plays it on.
We'll send some help down here. Then I'm not sure what Hood Schifino's made of offense.
So Indiana has turned North Carolina into a jump shooting team.
Another main spot he'll need to get better is as a three-point shooter first off the catch. He shot about 30% there on lower volume and wasn't nearly as comfortable as he was in the pick and roll setting. And when he already has some of the questions he does in creating consistent rim pressure, this becomes more important to his success. He's fine mechanically, though he could use some work in his shot prep. Now he was quietly pretty good off the dribble from three when he did take them, but he'll need to keep expanding. There just aren't a ton of examples of guys who can survive in the NBA with that shot diet and ratio of threes, unless you're DeMar DeRozan or Chris Paul, and they of course do other things and have been much more effective at the rim too. The margin for error becomes much lower when that's your primary source for points and you don't have the keys to an offense from the jump.
Ranked as others in the freshman class for Kansas, but he has shown he can play.
Breaks somebody down off the dribble out front.
Hood Schifino.
He fills it up.
Hood Schifino.
Back away from the basket allowed. Sends the ball to get the offensive rebound and put that.
I'd also say he can still improve some as a decision maker and taking care of the ball. He had some questionable shots and got sloppy with the handle or drove into traffic, averaging nearly 3 turnovers a game. He's still a very talented passer off the live dribble, solid decision maker overall, but there were games and moments that he showed he can still get better with some of this. One stat I thought was interesting and somewhat illustrating of the hesitation you might have is just how low his box plus minus was this year. Now box plus minus isn't just adding up your game by game plus minus on the year, it's compiling traditional box score data over 100 possessions and giving a raw number to judge the impact on court. And when you look at the players drafted that have ever had a negative BPM in their draft year, that list is Zaire Williams, Peyton Watson, Patrick Baldwin Jr., Ike Anignobu, and Kostas Antetokounmpo. They all have much different games and seasons than Hood Schifino had, and I also don't think basing an entire evaluation off raw box score numbers is going to serve you well every time, especially knowing the disadvantages that'll be there in the calculation of a heavy mid-range low three-point shooter that also has a low stock rate, but it's also not the company that you want a potential lottery pick to be in, but I thought it was at least far enough extreme to highlight if nothing else.
Hood Schifino goes.
I do think Jalen Hood Schifino is a solid bet in that starter to above average starter range as a facilitating combo guard, and at the least he should get into fringe rotation status as a connective guy. I just think there's enough there for him to impact the game, especially at that size. But the shooting along with the rim pressure will be the biggest factors in getting him to max out and exceed some of these expectations, maybe being a bit closer to being more of a lead guard in the NBA. Some see him as a legitimate option right outside the top 10. I don't know if I'd go that high, but somewhere in that 10 to 20ish range is where he'll likely land, with some of those best fits to me being Utah, Miami if they keep their pick, and Brooklyn. Now the majority of the top of this class is very difficult to comp, but that is also true for Fino because in terms of play style it pretty much doesn't exist in the NBA right now. I think Spencer Dinwiddie is a guy to look at as a bigger guard, shot maker that isn't a true lead but can run the show and has been a solid defender in the past. I haven't really found a great one. He's a better defender and passer than Spence, but that's kind of the direction I could see his game going in, and there were some similarities there.
Dinwiddie.
Jalen Hood Schifino's presence in the pick and roll, his feel as a passer, and his defense with good NBA size give him a good chance to be a contributor. I think there's reason to be somewhat hesitant given some of his struggles and questions, but he has intriguing tools that could really pop, and at a certain point in the draft I like betting on his talent and molding his game.